Senior writer for Rolling Stone, Brian Hiatt, joining us on the show as we have our rock and roll inductees: Peter Gabriel, Hall & Oates, Kiss, Nirvana, Linda Ronstadt, Cat Stevens. Biggest surprise out of that list, Brian, is who?
Well, I think people were wondering if Kiss would ever get in, and here they are. So I guess that would be the answer.
Yeah, but I have no problem with that. But I don't know what the definition is as far as, or the requirements, as far as contributions to music or, performance, theatrics, makeup, whatever it is, presence. I had no problem with Kiss getting in. They don't have the hits that most people have. But
yeah, no, I didn't say I had a problem with it. I said they were surprised.
Yeah, but why did it take so long for them to get in?
Because they're a critically despised band. Kids always liked Kiss, but critics hated them, and they were never taken seriously. They were seen as kind of a mass phenomenon, basically for children, and then for people who used to be children and then were nostalgic about being children, which I don't think is fair, but that was the perception. So that was essentially why.
The novelty bothered the music critics, the purists, that they weren't necessarily musicians as much as they were?
Yeah, I think they were perceived as very commercial, as a gimmick, et cetera, which once again, if you talk to, I don't know, the guys from Pearl Jam or whoever, like people who grew up on this stuff, they loved Kiss and they were influential in them, and they, inspired a lot of people to pick up guitars and play in rock bands. So, I mean, you kind of can't discount that.
Nirvana had an unbelievable 3 or 4 year window, but the fact when Kurt Cobain dies, how much did that add to their popularity, their impact?
I think it's easy actually to overestimate that. Nirvana were definitely one of the most important rock bands ever, and easily were so well before Kurt died. I mean, they kind of set the template for an entire decade of rock, if not beyond. They were Nirvana. They were, I don't know how much of a fan you were, but they were, they blew away. It's a cliche to say this, but they blew away all the hair metal and kind of commercial rock that was reigning towards the beginning of the 90s and set, all that, everything that we think of in sort of 90s rock, the sort of alternative nation, grunge, etc. That's all Nirvana. I mean, it wouldn't have happened. I mean, Pearl Jam were very important too, and other bands were important. But I mean, none of that would have happened without Nirvana. So, if Kurt Cobain was alive and well and making acoustic albums now, they would still have gotten it in the first year.
And also, I think it's when you happen upon the scene, because hair metal, I was never into that, and then all of a sudden, Nirvana, they were so different that all of a sudden they captured your imagination, and that was the brilliance of it. Then all of a sudden I could go to, the Gap was selling flannel shirts because Nirvana was, so popular. And the music as well, the whole Kurt Cobain mystery, and then Courtney Love involved in it. So, I mean, there was a fascination.
There's no mystery. Courtney Love was not involved in it. That's ridiculous. Sorry.
Well,
that's ridiculous. That's ludicrous. If you really look into the facts, that's absolutely ludicrous, and no one should make. The guy was a heroin addict and he was suicidal. There's not much mystery there.
Well, but she was married to him. So
yes,
there was still that part of her as a rock and roll couple, though.
Yes, but I mean, some people make kind of outrageous allegations, and he killed himself.
Yeah. As far as the band in the last 15 years that has made an impact that's similar to Nirvana,
there has not been one. Flat out, there has not been one. There's been no defining style of rock for the last day. Rock as that kind of mass phenomenon hasn't recurred since basically since Kurt Cobain's suicide. There've been popular bands. But it hasn't. There hasn't been a revolution that hit the kind of critical mass of Nirvana and grunge. I mean, rock has been very splintered. There's been a lot of great rock music, but it just hasn't captured the popular imagination the way that other genres have. Unfortunately, I guess you could say.
He's Brian Hiatt, the Rolling Stone senior writer, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. Peter Gabriel, no-brainer for me. If you combine his career with Genesis and then his solo career, why did it take this long for Peter Gabriel?
I think, once again, it's sort of prog rock that he's associated with has sort of the opposite problem from Kiss, which is, or in some ways a similar problem. It's just not been a genre that sort of the rock establishment has perhaps respected as much as stuff closer to the center. It's just, it kind of, it gets the reputation for being sort of silly and ponderous and whatever. And so I think it was a little, it took Genesis a while to get in. And now, so it's just a matter of, it's just sort of a delay. It's just sort of like the people who are perceived as closer to the center of things get in first, and then it's kind of, as far as veterans, it's kind of a reaching around, well, who did we miss? Who deserves to be in there? And I think that's why.
Well, Hall & Oates. Yeah. I mean, Hall & Oates are hit makers.
Yeah, Hall & Oates are hit makers. It's an interesting thing them getting in. I mean, they are, what people may not know is they've become very hip in the last decade. As sort of a reference to drop and even an influence on sort of young indie acts and stuff. So they've gone from, I think, probably something that's perceived as kind of cheesy to actually something really cool, So it's one of those weird things. It's hard to, but so I don't know how much of that played into this, but it's cool. It's cool. I always say, look, it's Hall of Fame. It's got fame in the name, so that if you're surprised, when people are surprised that certain big acts get in, whatever, it's it's Hall of Fame.
Cat Stevens with his religious beliefs and being sort of exported, that factor in at all?
I think he got in as Cat Stevens for his body of work that well preceded his conversion and appearance on the no-fly list and et cetera. I think it's it's sort of like it's. I think it's probably irrelevant. I think
okay.
I think he I think people were looking at. I mean, it's not like since he changed his name and converted, it's not like he's made a bunch of classic music. I have no idea what he's been doing, frankly, musically.
But do you look at these guys, Brian, like Coldplay Hall of Fame?
Yeah, God, it's so hard to look for. I mean, I would bet eventually, sure.
Okay, Radiohead.
Oh yeah.
Dave Matthews.
Probably. Almost certainly.
Pearl Jam.
First ballot. They'll get it right away. Yeah.
More so than Radiohead.
Radiohead, and I would say of the ones you named, Radiohead and Pearl Jam are the easiest, are the biggest no-brainers. They'll both get in right away.
Band to watch for in 2014. Is there somebody that you would single out?
A band to watch.
Yes.
Well, there's a punk band that people are talking a lot about in New York that has a name that I can't say on the radio. so that's the one that jumps to mind.
What does it rhyme with, Brian?
Oh my God! It doesn't quite rhyme with Mulva, but it's a similar idea.
Okay.
But their name is a problem. The New York Times couldn't print it. I don't know what they're going to do about that. But how's that for obscure?
I like that. Let's see. Jay-Z, Hall of Famer, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, it's been, LL Cool J, for instance, has had trouble getting in, whereas Run DMC had no trouble getting in. So it's hard to say how the voters are making their determinations with who in hip hop deserves to get in, or to a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And it feels like people with some kind of sort of rock and roll vibe are getting in. So, but it does feel like Jay-Z will get in. Yeah,
Kanye West.
Oh yeah, he'll get in. He'll get in.
It'd be a better story if he doesn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You can only imagine what Jesus would be saying if he didn't get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And,
I mean, there's an old blues singer who said that they have it backwards. It should be an R&B Hall of Fame, and the R&B singers should get to determine who from the rock world gets in. And there may be something to that. And I think Kanye might say, "What do I care if I'm in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I'm not in Rock and Roll. Like, let's start the Hip Hop Hall of Fame, and then we can worry about that."
Brian, I appreciate you joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Brian. Right, Brian Hiatt, Rolling Stone senior writer.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.